We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. Have you ever noticed how silence can hurt more than words? You send a message to someone who once meant the world to you. Minutes pass, then hours. No reply. Your mind begins its quiet spiral. Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Have I lost them? Before anything even happens, you've already constructed a world of heartbreak inside your head. This is the silent war we all fight. The war between what is and what we feel. Life has a way of confronting us with emotional goodbyes, some loud, others quiet. Friendships fade without closure. Lovers turn into strangers. People we once trusted drift into shadows. It hurts, not just because they're gone, but because a piece of us feels like it went with them. And that's the question so many of us struggle with. Can I truly detach from someone without losing myself in the process? The ancient Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, faced this question head-on, not by avoiding pain, but by understanding its root. They weren't cold, they weren't emotionless, they were masters of emotional clarity. To detach is not to stop caring, it's to reclaim power over the one thing no one can take from you, your peace of mind. In this story, I want to walk with you, not as a teacher, but as someone who's been there. Through 5 timeless Stoic principles, we'll explore what it really means to let go, not by force, but with grace. Not to forget people, but to find ourselves again in their absence. Because real strength doesn't look like indifference. It looks like peace after the storm. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. Marcus Aurelius. We often think that emotional pain comes from the event itself, the breakup, the silence, the goodbye. But the Stoics believed otherwise. They believed pain grows from our resistance to change. Think of someone holding tightly to a handful of sand. The harder they squeeze, the faster the grains slip through their fingers. The same is true for people. The more we try to cling, the faster they seem to drift away. Marcus Aurelius teaches us to embrace impermanence, not to fear it. Everything in life, relationships, moments, even our own thoughts, is fleeting. The tighter we try to hold on, the more we suffer. I remember a friendship I once had, 10 years of shared dreams, laughter, and late-night phone calls. I thought it would last forever. But slowly, distance crept in. Conversations became shorter. Plans fell through. The person I once knew faded into a version I didn't recognize, and I held on, too tightly. Every memory became a chain around my chest. It wasn't until I accepted the truth that our story had reached its natural end that I began to feel free. Not because I stopped caring, but because I stopped resisting what was already happening. Stoicism doesn't tell you to love less. It invites you to love more consciously, to see people as they are, not as permanent fixtures, but as passing travelers in our lives. Cherish them fully while they are here, and let them go when their time has passed. When you shift your mindset from attachment to appreciation, you begin to feel lighter. You stop expecting forever. You start valuing now. We don't lose people because we stop loving them. We lose them because all things move, and to love wisely is to let them. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. When we're hurt, we often say, "They made me feel this way." But is that really true? Or is it just the story we tell ourselves? The Stoics believe that emotions are not caused by events, but by our interpretations of them. It's not the silence that wounds you. It's what you think that silence means. Imagine sending a heartfelt message to someone you care about. You wait. No reply. Your mind begins constructing scenarios. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they don't care. And with each passing thought, the emotional storm inside you grows. But what if the truth is far simpler? What if they were just busy? What if their silence had nothing to do with you at all? I've lived through this. I remember once anxiously waiting for a reply from someone important to me. My heart was pounding. Thoughts raced. I imagined every worst-case scenario. But the next day, they messaged me as if nothing was wrong. They had been swamped with work. Meanwhile, I had spent a whole night drowning in emotions built on fiction. This is where Stoicism offers liberation. It teaches us to slow down, to question our thoughts before we let them rule us. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that our inner peace depends not on what others do, but on what we think about what they do. Every emotion starts with a thought. Change the thought, and you change the emotion. The next time you feel rejected, ignored, or disappointed, pause. Ask yourself, what are the facts? What story am I telling myself? Is there another, calmer way to see this? Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting unchecked thoughts drag you into suffering. Emotional freedom begins not when the world changes, but when your mind learns to respond with quiet clarity. He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. Seneca. No one likes to think about loss. We avoid it, we deny it, we pretend that the people we love will always stay. But the Stoics did something different. They practiced what they called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of loss. At first, it might sound dark. Why would anyone want to imagine losing someone they love? But here's the paradox. The more we accept the possibility of loss, the less power it has to destroy us. I remember a time when one of my closest friends was preparing to move overseas. We had spent years growing together, emotionally, spiritually, even creatively. The thought of them being gone left an ache in my chest, but instead of pushing the fear away, I leaned into it. Each day I imagined life without them. Walking through the city alone, laughing with different people, discovering new parts of myself. It wasn't easy, but something shifted. I began to cherish our remaining moments more deeply. I said things I had been holding back. I showed up with presence, and when the time came to say goodbye, I didn't break. I had already lived the goodbye in my mind. This is what negative visualization offers, not emotional numbness, but emotional readiness. You don't wait for the storm to come and hope it doesn't hurt. You train in the calm so that when the clouds roll in, your foundation holds. The Stoics believe that nothing truly belongs to us, not people, not possessions, not even time. Everything we love is on loan from life, and when we remember that, we stop gripping so tightly. Instead of fearing the end, we start honoring the present. Try this. Picture your life without someone you love, not to scare yourself, but to teach your heart how to hold and release with equal grace. Because the point is not to stop loving, the point is to love bravely, knowing it might end and still choosing to open your heart anyway. Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, then your life will flow well. Epictetus. One of the hardest truths in life is this. You don't get to control how others feel about you. You can give your time, your care, your honesty. You can love fully, show up consistently, even lose sleep for someone else. But you cannot force them to reciprocate. You cannot make them stay. That's where so much of our suffering begins, in the illusion that if we just try hard enough, say the right words, or become the perfect version of ourselves, we can make someone love us the way we need. But the Stoics would tell you otherwise. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about the power of focusing only on what's within your control. Your thoughts, your actions, your responses. Everything else, how others behave, how they feel, how long they stay, is not yours to command. There was a time in my life when I gave everything to keep a relationship alive. I listened, I adapted, I poured energy into every message, every plan, every small gesture. But no matter how much I gave, I always felt like I was chasing. I was exhausted, emotionally stretched thin. And then I read one line that changed everything. You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. That was the wake-up call. I realized I had been trying to control something that was never mine to control, their feelings. The moment I shifted my attention inward to my own boundaries, values, and emotional well-being, everything changed. I found peace not in fixing the relationship, but in freeing myself from the outcome. Detachment doesn't mean you walk away from everyone who disappoints you. It means you stop tying your emotional stability to unpredictable things, like other people's moods, actions, or validation. When you reclaim your energy and focus on what you can control, You begin to move from desperation to dignity. You start showing up in relationships not as someone who needs to be chosen, but as someone who already belongs to themselves. That's the quiet strength Stoicism teaches, not the power to control others, but the grace to let go and still be whole. Soon you will have forgotten all things. Soon all things will have forgotten you. Marcus Aurelius. When we're entangled in heartbreak, it's easy to forget the vastness of life. A single person, a single relationship can begin to feel like the center of your universe. Their absence echoes through every corner of your mind. Every memory becomes a trigger. Every place you shared feels haunted by what once was. But the Stoics invite us to zoom out, to step back from the immediate pain and ask, in the grand story of your life, how much space should this moment truly take? Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that even the worst of life's pains are just small ripples in a vast ocean of time. He would visualize entire empires rising and falling, generations being born and passing away, and he'd place his own troubles within that perspective. Not to diminish them, but to contain them. I remember a breakup that nearly broke me. For weeks, I replayed every conversation, every missed sign. I felt like I had lost the future I had imagined. But slowly, I began to shift my focus. I asked myself, would this pain define the rest of my life? Or was it just one chapter? That question became a lifeline. I looked at all I had survived before, the losses, the endings, the times I thought I wouldn't make it. And yet here I was, breathing, growing, becoming. We often forget how many versions of ourselves we've already let go of, how many times we've outgrown our own pain. The person you're missing, they were part of your journey, but they are not your whole story. When you step back, you begin to see with clearer eyes. You remember that life is wide, that your purpose is deeper than any one connection. You start to reconnect with the parts of yourself that existed long before they entered your life, and will continue long after they're gone. Emotional detachment, then, is not the act of closing your heart. It's the act of opening your eyes. You were never meant to anchor your soul in someone else. You were meant to live fully, with or without them. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. It's a strange thing how what once broke us can become the very thing that makes us stronger. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming numb or pretending we don't care. It's about learning how to live in a world where people leave, where plans fall apart, where feelings change, and still remain whole. The Stoics never promised a life without pain. What they offered was a path through it, a way to take the things that hurt us and turn them into something useful, something that shapes us into wiser, calmer, more grounded versions of ourselves. I once went through a heartbreak so sudden, it felt like the air had been pulled from my lungs. There was no warning, no final conversation, just distance, silence, a cold ending to something I thought was solid. For weeks, I replayed it all in my mind. I tried to find logic in the loss, some reason that would make the pain easier to carry, but reason never came. Instead, I found a different kind of clarity, the kind that only arrives when you stop trying to change what already is. Marcus Aurelius taught that every obstacle is a teacher, that the very thing we wish hadn't happened may be the thing we needed to grow. When you stop fighting reality, when you stop asking why and start asking how can I grow from this, everything shifts. The pain doesn't vanish, but it transforms. It becomes a sculptor, carving out your character. It becomes a mirror, reflecting what still needs healing. It becomes a compass, pointing you back to your center. There's a quiet power in accepting what you cannot change, a kind of freedom that comes only when you release the need to rewrite the past. This is what Stoicism ultimately offers, not detachment from feeling, but detachment from illusion. The illusion that love guarantees permanence, that effort guarantees outcome, that life will unfold according to plan. You are not weak for having loved. You are strong for having survived the unraveling and still choosing to stand. Let that be your peace. Let that be your way forward.